Hello, welcome to another edition of Cracking the Cryptic. Now today I thought we might have a bit of fun. Some of you complain that I very rarely speed solve on the channel, and I'm not proposing to speed solve today, but I'm going to go a little bit quicker than I might sometimes go in order to just demonstrate how ridiculous some of the Japanese puzzlers are when it comes to solving these puzzles. Now you may say, what is this puzzle? Well, this is a Japanese sums puzzle. We have done a couple of these on the channel before. I'll put a card or two up so that you can have a look and refresh your memory as to how these work. But very simply, these clues around the edge, what we need to do is to make cells add up to, in this case, 10. Then we have to put at least one black square, and then we have to make the next contiguous group of cells add up to 18. And we're only allowed to use the numbers 1 to 7, and we can't repeat a digit in a row or a column. So apart from that, that's all of the rules. Those of you who like nonograms may like this puzzle because there are very much elements of that. We have to sort of work out. A big part of solving this is where the black squares can go, and trying to build up the pattern of the grid almost before we put in any numbers at all. Now, why have I chosen this puzzle? Well, I hinted at Japanese puzzlers. This puzzle appeared in the final of the World Cup at the recent World Puzzle Championship. Therefore, there is some footage available of the Japanese solvers attempting it. And this puzzle has quite an interesting anecdote because the four finalists included Hideaki Jo, Ken Endo, who we featured in a video recently showing his solve of a tapper puzzle, and many of you were quite stunned. I mean, it is like watching. It's Rain Man-esque, the speed at which his brain works. It is absolutely startlingly brilliant. So Ken is in the final. Kota Morinishi, the multiple World Sudoku champion, is in the final. And Tomoya Kimura as well, who we've also featured solving recently on the channel, doing the aquarium puzzle. So it's those four facing off in a series of puzzles, and basically it's a race just to solve the puzzles as quickly as you can. This was the first puzzle, and Hideaki Jo just monsters the field. He is so fast at this puzzle, it's quite astounding. He finishes this puzzle, for those of you who are speedsters, in less than 5 minutes. Okay, a little bit less than 5 minutes. Now, we have got a number of competitors from the World Puzzle Championship who follow the channel, so I know some of you will be keen to see how fast you can go. Be interested to get your comments on the video from how quick you did manage this. And the reason that I think it's interesting is that Hideaki built up a huge lead on this puzzle over Ken. And there's, in the video footage, which I will include at the end of the video, just for a brief instant, the camera switches to Ken Endo's script, and you can see Ken he hasn't entered a number at a point when Hideaki is not far from finishing. So quite breathtaking. Hideaki is a fabulous solver. I mean, he was always up there on the old Nicoli site in the races on that. Just one of the world's great puzzlers. So as I say, I want to go a little bit quicker than I might normally. I'm still going to talk through the logic, obviously, but I'm going to try not go at 5-minute pace, but not end up doing a half-an-hour video if I can. Now that's especially, this isn't really a live solve because I've watched Hideaki solve, so I sort of have a head start there as well. So how do we do this? Well, the first thing to do is add up the numbers 1 to 7. You get 28 if you do that, and that tells us which rows and columns are going to be the most restricted, because obviously if you have a row or a column, this column is a good example, which adds to 28, then it must contain all of the digits from 1 to 7. Now, it's fairly obvious to state there are 7 digits from 1 to 7, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That would take us down to here if we put them all in a line, but we know, looking at this clue, that there must be one black square between this 7 and this 7, so that's one black square, another black 7 between these two clues, black square, and another black square between these two clues. So there must, in this configuration, be 3 black squares at least, and 7 numbers. Now this is a 10 by 10 grid, so you don't have to be Hideaki Jo to realise that In fact, that is the exact configuration. There must be exactly 3 black squares, and those black squares must be between the clues that contain the digits. Now that tells you this square and this square must be green. Now I'm going to use green to indicate squares that must be green, squares that must be numbers, sorry. And those must be therefore numbers. These must be numbers, and in this row as well, look, these add up to 28, and it's the same thing. We've got to have 3 black squares, so we can also do that. Now 11s at the edges of these two mean 11 must be at least 2 squares, so we get more green squares. And it's very much, you know, this is what we have to do. We have to build it up. Now, next thing I think, and I'm not sure if Ken spotted this, is that there is a restriction that goes on. If we look at these 2 7 clues and think about how it might work, obviously this could be a 7 on its own. Now if it's a 7 on its own, that would be a black square, and because this is now a 7 on its own, the next 7 must be a 2-cell clue, so you'd have to have that configuration at the start of the column. Now the only other situation that could exist is that this one is not a 1-cell clue. Now if it is a 2-cell 7 clue, then that one would have to be a black square and this would have to be green. Now the eagle-eyed among you will have spotted that in both of those situations, which were the only situations that could exist, this square was green. So that one is a green square, and by symmetry that's a green square, that's a green square, and that's a green square. Similarly for this row, that must be a green square, that must be a green square. And this, I think, is the break into the puzzle, because now, look, in this column we've identified one of the 2-cell clues, so we can surround that with black squares like that, write in our first digit. We don't yet know whether that's a green or a black square, but we know that this column has 1 7 on its own and then 3 2-cell clues. That just gives us enough room like that. So we get this column. We don't yet know how it's disposed, but this row will allow us to make further progress, because look, this square is very critical. Can this square be green? If it's green, these 4 cells would add to 11, then we'd have a black square. Then this clue, let's say that's a 3 on its own, then a black square, and now I've simply not got enough room. I've only got 3 squares left to fit in a 3 clue and an 11 clue with a black square between them. Well, that's clearly nonsense, so that one's got to be a black square. Now we can't have, if I make that green, that doesn't work, so that's therefore a black square, and we get another couple of digits, 3 and a 4. This now must be a 2-cell 3 clue, so we can put 1 and 2 in, make that green. This is a black square, and the edges here are 2-cell 11 clues, so they must be either 4, 7 or 5 and 6. Okay, so what do we do after we get that in the grid? And this is where my sort of, my issues with solving are, because you just don't have any time to pause in the way I am doing here to think. This 14, yes, okay, 14, let's think about the number 14. What's the minimum number of cells we need for a 14 clue? Well, 7 plus 6 is 13, so a 14 clue must be a minimum of 3 cells. So let's imagine all of these squares were black. Then how would I fit in 2 lots of 14 below this black square? Well, I simply can't do it. There's not enough room. Ergo, these are all green. Now that helps. Look, this now is forced. We get a couple more black squares like that. Can't have 2 black squares in a row in this configuration. It simply isn't enough room. So we get another 2-cell 7 clue there. We don't yet know whether this is which one of these is the black square. We know this must be a 3. These two squares must be adding up to 11. So they're 5, 6, or 4, 7. Remove the 7, remove the 4. This can't be a 4 now, because it can only be a 5, 6, or a 7. So it must be part of the 12 clue. Therefore this square is green. This must be green. That must be black. This must be a 5 or a 6, because we know these two add up to 7. And this 4 clue could be 2 cells or 1 cell. We don't know what's going on in there. We know that this 3-cell clue here is part of the right-hand 14, because there's not enough room to have another 14 clue to the right of it. 14, the maximum number of digits it could be would be 5. No, in fact 4 is the maximum, isn't it? Because I can't repeat the 4. I can't go 1, 2, 3, 4, 4. So actually those two squares must be black. And now this is cool now, because now this 14 plus 14 adds to 28. So we know that there must be 7 green squares in this configuration. And given that I know 14 is 3 cells at least, those must be green, that must be black, that must be green. So that's nice. Now 10 must be 2 digits at least, so that's green, and 10 cannot be more than 4 digits. So look, those must be 4, must be 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4. That square is black. This must be a 4, this must be a 7 therefore. Just remove the 4 and the 7 from those squares. Write in 1, 2 and 3 up there. Therefore this is green. This is green. Therefore that's a black square. This is a 7. This must be a 2, 1, 6. Let's put the black squares around it, see if that tells us anything extra. 8 clue must be 2 squares. So this 6 clue is now 1, 2 and 3. That must be 5, 6 or 7. Can't be a 7, so this can't be a 1. Therefore this can't be a 1, because otherwise these two clues would have to be 6 and 7. This can't be a 2 either for the same reason. That would force 5 and 7, and with this 7 here that's not possible, so that must be a 3. This must be a 5 or a 6. 21, the minimum it could be would be 4 squares. It could be 7, 6, 5 and 3, which looks possible actually. But that's got to be a 5 or a 6 as well. So that's still possible. So that would make that a black square. That would make this the left-hand 8. That obviously must be a 2. 14 must be 3 cells, so those are all green. Now 7, 1, 20. This must be part of the 20. 20 must be 4 cells at least, so those are green. That means that could be a 1, or that could be a 1. And that would make that a 7. Oh, how annoying. 18 though, look, if these two add up to 28, so we must use all the digits, therefore that square is in. Because whether that's a 3 there or a 3 there, this one is always green. 9 must be 2 squares at least, so that one's green. That can't be green, because that would have to be part of the 7 clue, and you can't have a 4 cell 7 clue. So that's quite nice now, because now look, we've got a 5 or a 6 here, so this must be a 2 cell 7 clue. 7 could otherwise have been 1, 2 and 4. So this is a 1 or a 2 here. So that's a 5 or a 6. 5, a 6, 5, 6, add to 11. Look, so those two squares are black. 6. This could still be a 5 probably. This 12 is 2 squares, so that can't be a 6. That must be a 5 or a 7. And it's 2 squares, so it can't be a 7. So this must be a 7, that's a 5, that's a 2. Ah, that's a 4. I could have got that because there was a 5-6 pair. Hideaki would have got that instantly. That must be green. Okay, so that's fixed. Yeah, that looks right. That looks right. It's just checking this one. There's 6, obviously. We've got 6 green digits, but these don't add up to 28, so that looks fine. 2, 1, 2, 5, 6. 2, 3. 8 must be 2 squares. 10 must be 2 squares. That's interesting. So let's look at these 2 clues, which have to fit into this space. Given that 8 and 10 must be 2 squares each at least, however I arrange this, I always end up with 1. I can't put a black square here, otherwise there's not enough room. And I can't put a black square here, or there's not enough room. Those 2 squares are green. That's not useful. It is useful. Look, that 1 clue. 1 clue must just be the number 1. So that must be that square. That's lovely. 1. Therefore, that's a 7. Therefore, those are 3 green squares exactly, because this is 28. We've now got our full complement for column 1. Those must both be black squares. This must be a 5 and 6. Therefore, this must be green. This adds to... that's one. I still don't know what's going on with these 2. Now this is interesting. 9, 10, 9. This must be part of the 10 clue, therefore that square must be black, because I need enough room for a 9 clue. 9 must be 2 digits. So those 2 squares. And now we've got 7 green squares. So those 2 squares are black squares. This 1 now, that gives it. So that's a 7 and a 1 in those 2 squares. I see. 7, 1. Now that's not a 1. Therefore that's a 1, 2, 5, 6, 5, 3, 2. Okay. 5, 6 here. So this should be 3 or 4. This could be a 3-cell clue, but no, hang on, it's a 28 clue, we've got 7 in, so those 2 squares are black as well. That must be a 3 or a 4. 3, 5, this, now that's interesting. The only way of making this 9 clue 3 digits would be if that square was a 1, and it can't be a 1, so it's a 2-digit 9 clue. Followed by a 10 clue, which means that's green, followed by a 9 clue, which means that's green, just because there must always be, they're all 2-cell clues. In fact, this 21 must be 4 squares, so we've got that one before. Now, 11 and a 10, so it's not possible this is a black square, otherwise the 11 would have to be 5 cells large. So that's green. 11 must be 2 squares at least. This can't be a 14, otherwise there's not enough room for 2 6s to the right of it. So this square is black. Therefore 14 is 3 squares, those are in. This is a 10 clue, which must be 4 and 6. So that's a 7 now, I could have got that before. That must be a black square. These 2 clues must be 3 and 4. I mean, I don't feel I'm going that slowly, but 15 minutes into the video, I suppose I probably burbled on for 5 minutes at the start. These add to 28, so this must be 7 cells that are green. Therefore, that's green, that's black. This could still be, so 1, 5, 6 into those squares. 1, 5, 6. You know I'm getting desperate when I start fully notating. 2, 5, 1, 6 into these. 2, 5, 1, 6. Could this still be a 6 on its own? Yes. But that's a black square, so actually it is a 6 on its own. This is a 5. That's not 5 or 6, therefore that's not 1 or 2. This must not have a 5 in it there, so if that's a 6, the 10 clue breaks, because that would have to be a 5. So that's a 1, that's a 6. Now, if that's a 4, 5, 3 or 6, still works either way. This 1 though fixes that one, look, so that's 2, that's 5. This is 4, 3 in that order, that's 3, 4, that's 6, 5. That all looks like it's working. This 10 clue must mean that's a 1. These two squares have to add up to 7, so that one can't be a 6 anymore. That must be a 4, 6, 3, 5. That's all working, so I've probably not made a mistake there. That's good. Now that's a 6 clue on its own, look. So that one square must be black. It must therefore be followed by a 2-cell clue. And we've already got a 4 there. So this is the numbers 1 and 5 in some order. It can't be 5 here. That was going to break that clue. So that's a 1. That's a 5. That must be a 3. Therefore this square is a black square. And that is a green square. 10. That must be 2 and 4. There's a 4 up there. 4, 2. This square must be a 7 and must be green. That square must be a 2. That means that's a 1. That's a 6, 5, 6, like that. These two squares here must be 3 and 7. That should be doable now. 7, 3. That's a 2. If I haven't made a mistake, that's a 4. I'm going to colour it in green. Just a quick thing to note that our software is built for Sudoku, so don't worry too much if you click check at the end of puzzles and it says this is wrong, because what the software is trying to do is to assess whether you've put the numbers 1 to 9 into a Sudoku grid. So I think in the future we hope to fix all that so that actually the check button always works on every sort of puzzle, but that's work in progress. That's how to do the puzzle. Now I really recommend you stay with the video and watch an absolute maestro burn this up and make me look extremely stupid. Thanks for watching, and we'll be back soon with another edition of Cracking the Cryptic.
This one has complete information, so there's nothing points all over the place. For example, 4 sevens in a row, it's numbers from 1 to 7, I think. That's right. But it's 1 to 7. And they all start marking cells which they know must contain a number.
Yeah, there are a lot of things that look like they sum to 28 here. So I believe in the case that you've got 4 givens that sum to 28, you can get the 2 things to the edge. We see on Coda's grid that he's marked 2 of those already, although I think he missed marking a 3rd. I doubt it's going to take him too long to catch that, though.
It seems like Hideaki has already spotted many cells.
Hideaki is very well known for being very, very good at Kakuro, so I am not surprised to see him fire through this one.
I mean, he has not entered a single number so far, or just one, but it will really come really fast once he has entered the first digits. The rest of them will fall like dominoes. I think this can be a very quick solve for him.
It does look like he's the first of our competitors to start writing in numbers as opposed to placements of where the numbers can go and shaded areas.
Yeah, it looks like what you're supposed to find here is that the 7s arrangement means that, well, actually all the 4-part clues that sum to 28 have a 2-2-2-1 split, and there's a lot of traffic in those top rows, those middle columns. So I think that's how Hideaki managed to get all of those cells.
Yes, I think every single step is also typical for this puzzle style, so there's nothing unfamiliar about it. These guys know exactly where they have to look. There are no surprises here, no hidden unusual solving techniques. This should be a straightforward solve for every one of them, just maybe with different paces.
Looks like Kota has found a little bit of progress, although he's not.
Yes, actually he has made a lot of notations, which as you can see he has drawn very small dots, so it isn't really far from the other ones, just different notations which is less visible to us.
And speaking of notations, just looking at the speed Hideaki is moving his hand whilst remaining beautifully neat, it's almost mesmerizing.
Yes, he's almost finished with the first puzzle. He has a lead. Not a huge lead. Kota is in second position, I think, and the second puzzle is maybe half a minute or a minute in front, but not really much, I think. Yes, Kota is definitely making the same amount of progress now. And Hideaki is only to full half dozen cells in the corner.
Hideaki will be submitting any second now, so he'll take the lead. I don't think Kota's going to be more than a minute behind him, though.